Now I would like to give the floor to the distinguished representative of the Russian Federation. You have the floor.
Mr. President, we want to thank Special Envoy Martin Griffith, Undersecretary General Mark Lowcock, our distinguished briefers, and the Executive Director of UNICEF, Madam Four, for their very worrying reports, as well as the Permanent Representative of Peru about the very important visit by the 2140 Committee. Russia welcomes progress achieved by the UN team headed by Special Envoy Griffith in bringing the Yemeni parties to the conflict and implementing the agreements reached in Stockholm. We also would like to commend General Lolesgaard for his excellent efforts. The launch of the first phase of the redeployment of the armed forces from the ports of Hodeidah, Salif, and Ras Isa is the most important step in implementing the broader plan of disengaging the belligerents. We, of course, understand that this is only the beginning. The main part of the work still lies ahead of us, but already it's clear that these initial results have been made possible only through the painstaking diplomatic efforts of the UN and external players who have adopted a respectful attitude to all parties based on commitment and an impartial attitude. The strategic goal remains the same, and that is launching a fully fledged political process in order to discuss all the parameters of a comprehensive solution. We believe that a real window of opportunity is now open to implement other aspects of the Stockholm Agreement, including the exchange of prisoners, de-escalation in Taiz, and other regions. We have no doubt that the continuing deployment of the UN mission in support of the Hodeidah Agreement will contribute to normalization in this city and also will contribute to stabilizing the situation in Yemen as a whole. We call on all sides to contribute to this goal. Now, an impartial UN mediation is of extreme importance. However, it can only be successful if it is based on the good faith of the parties and their wish to stabilize the situation in their own country. And what's very important is that it needs to do everything in order to refrain from any provocative steps that could threaten prospects for a peace solution, and certainly do not help in the UN's effort. Now, the goal of external players and the parties to the conflict in achieving a lasting solution has never been as important as today. We call on members of the Council to continue their collective efforts aimed at bringing the conflict back to the political track, to achieving a comprehensive ceasefire, and to providing assistance to the Yemeni people. What's important is to work constantly with all parties to the conflict and with all participants. Russia will continue to provide support to the UN mediation in overcoming Yemeni differences. And Mr. President, as the reports of Mr. Lowcock and Madam Four, and by the way, we really highly value the selfless work of UN humanitarian actors in Yemen and other areas. Their briefings and reports show that the humanitarian situation in the country continues to be dismaying. Unfortunately, we have to note that the country is in the midst of a very profound humanitarian crisis, which has led to incalculable suffering by the civilian population. The infrastructure has been destroyed. It's even difficult to imagine that as a result of this senseless war in the 21st century, the population of Yemen, including women, children, are hungry. They can't even obtain basic medication or basic services, and they don't have access to the most basic assistance. And only through the selfless work of humanitarian workers has it been possible to avoid a humanitarian collapse in this country. Currently, the priority task is to ensure that the Yemenis obtain urgent humanitarian assistance. Russia is doing its part, and we want to stress that humanitarian assistance being delivered to Yemen from abroad must be made available to all the population on in non-discriminatory basis, independently of who controls which territory. This goal is essential not only to resolve the humanitarian problem, but to ensure future reconciliation. But I think for all, it is quite clear that solving the humanitarian crisis cannot be the panacea. The solution is only to be found through a political process. And here we really attach great hopes to UN's mediation efforts and your own efforts. Mr. Griffith, we will help you in every way we can. We call on the participants of the Yemeni conflict to demonstrate restraint and to ensure unimpeded humanitarian access to all areas of the country, and what's most important, to actively cooperate with the UN and to assist the UN rather than to complicate its efforts. We call on urgently to refrain from the indiscriminate use of force and to damaging the oil infrastructure. But before seeking to define who's guilty, what's important is to conduct a professional and objective investigation before determining who is responsible. Mr. President, in the situation that we see today, what's particularly important or relevant is the Russian proposal of launching a process in the Persian Gulf of developing a package of security and confidence building measures. This will contribute to stabilization in this part of the world, but also in resolving protracted and newer crisis situations, including the Yemeni conflict. We believe that all countries of the region should take part in this process, including the states of the Persian Gulf and Iran. What's necessary is a positive external support in moving this process forward. What's important is an immediate de-escalation of the situation in this part of the world. Only through joint efforts aimed at cooperation rather than confrontation will it be possible to achieve a comprehensive and indivisible security throughout the Middle East. Thank you very much.
I thank the distinguished representative of the Russian Federation